There are several variations to the Slaughterhouse Canyon legend. Although there are differences in the tales, the premise of the story is the same. The canyon where the horrific tale occurred is actually Luana's Canyon, otherwise known as Slaughterhouse Canyon, situated just southeast of Kingman in Arizona. As the tale goes, during the 1800s, there was a family that lived in the canyon in a small wooden shack. The husband was a dreamer and wanted nothing more than to provide a better life for his wife Luana and their children. He would venture off into the mountains in search of gold and food for his family. The only food that the small family had to eat was what the man would bring home from his gold hunting expeditions. The man would leave and not return for 2 weeks at a time. He always returned and his family always ate, but all good things come to an end. One day the husband kissed his family goodbye and rode off on the back of a mule to once again provide for his family. Unfortunately, it would be the last time that his family would see him. Apparently, the man became another victim of the gold rush tragedy. His wife waited for her husband for many days after his expected return and soon realized that something was terribly wrong. The food started to dwindle until there was none left. The mother and her children began to starve. Without food and without her husband, Luana began to slip into madness. Her children became pale and weak. They were constantly begging for food, but the mother had none to give. Each day that passed pushed the mother closer towards the brink of insanity, until she eventually snapped. Unable to cope with the reality of watching her children starve to death, she murdered them and cut them into small pieces. It's also said she took the time to put on her white wedding gown before the horrific act. When the mother had finished this horrible deed, her white wedding gown and the walls of the tiny wooden shack were painted with the blood of her children. The woman then carried what was left of her children down to the edge of the river and tossed them in. She collapsed in a blood-soaked heap and began to wail loudly for her children. She was overcome with sadness and guilt. She remained on the riverbank and continued to scream and wail until the next morning, when she would succumb to starvation herself. She died crying for the children that she had murdered, but were doomed to die anyway. There are many claims that the wails can still be heard within the canyon. On a quiet night, it's said that anyone brave enough to venture into the canyon can hear the wails and sobs of the heartbroken and psychotic mother. Although, this isn't to be confused with the Mexican tragedy, called the Legend of La Llorona, Spanish for the Weeping Woman, which also happened in that area of the country. The wailing of Luana's Canyon is more than just urban legend, according to ones who have heard the creepy calls of the murderous mother. Is Luana's Canyon haunted by the restless and disturbed spirit of a mother